The day a father is laid to rest is meant to be a day of mourning, but for one family, it became the day their world collapsed. A powerful man's sudden death, a grieving wife, a young son barely 11, and in the shadows a brother, whose smile had the sharp edge of betrayal. In a matter of weeks, wealth, homes, and businesses vanished into the hands of greed, from a mansion to a cramped apartment, from security to hunger. But the boy they thought was broken grew into a man with a plan, a man ready to fight, ready to expose lies, ready to take back everything. This is not just a story of revenge. It is a battle for dignity, for justice, and for the truth to finally stand taller than the lies. This is the day the betrayer became the broken. Before we unravel on today's story, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. You're watching the Ife Creative Pen, your sweet storyteller. The day they buried my father, Chief Obinna, was the day my world collapsed. He had been a wealthy man, estates in 3 states, booming businesses, cars people dreamed of. My mother and I were the center of his world. But to my uncle, Chike, my father's younger brother, we were an obstacle. I was just 11, holding my mother's hand so tightly my fingers hurt, as my father's coffin was lowered into the ground. Chike stood nearby, greeting guests with a smile that made my stomach turn. He didn't look at us once, but even then, I sensed something in him, the satisfaction of a man who had already claimed a victory. 2 weeks later, our nightmare began. The company lawyer arrived with papers showing all my father's properties, businesses, and accounts now belonged to Chike. He claimed my father's had gone missing and that family discussions had placed everything in his care. We were given until the end of the month to leave the mansion, from riches to rags in days. We moved into a cramped apartment in a rundown part of Enugu. My mother sold her jewelry to pay my school fees, often skipping meals so I could eat. At night, I would hear her muffled sobs through the thin walls. Meanwhile, Chike was living in our house, driving my father's cars, and hosting parties where he bragged about how he had rescued the family business. I hated him, and I swore that one day I would take back everything. I worked through school, saving every naira I could. I learned about law, business, and power, the kind that didn't care about right or wrong, only about who was willing to fight harder. By the time I was 25, I was ready. I returned to the city and began watching Chike. I bribed his driver, his secretary, even the gateman. Piece by piece, I uncovered the truth. He had forged documents after my father's death, siphoned millions into offshore accounts, and bribed officials to protect him. But the most damning piece of evidence was a video. Chike, laughing as he signed the forged property papers, mocking my mother and me, saying we belonged on the streets. I partnered with a fearless investigative journalist. We agreed to wait until my legal case against him was in motion before releasing anything. When the court froze his accounts and ordered an investigation, the video went public. It spread like wildfire, and his name was dragged through every headline in Nigeria. Former employees came forward with their own stories. His empire began to crumble. I went to see him. He was sitting alone in the mansion's living room, the same room where my father once sat. "It was you," he said. "It was always going to be me," I replied. I gave him an envelope containing the court orders that returned every business, house, and account to my control. Sign them by morning, or the rest of what I have goes to EFCC and Interpol. You will rot in prison. He signed, but I underestimated him. Weeks later, strange things began happening. Brake failure in my car, threatening calls to my mother, my apartment ransacked with a photo of me as a boy left on my bed, marked in red. Not finished. Chike had lost his wealth, but not his hunger for revenge. He tried to bribe a judge to overturn the ruling and hired dangerous men to silence me. I set a trap. Through a contact, I fed him a fake lead that the judge was ready to deal. The judge was an undercover EFCC operative, and the meeting was wired. Chike walked in with a briefcase of cash, sealing his own fate. EFCC agents swarmed in, cameras rolling. That footage hit the news the same night. This time, there was no bail, no friends in high places. He was charged with bribery, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. The next morning, I sat with my mother in the living room of the house we had lost years ago. She held my hand and said, "We cannot get back the years we lost, but you have restored our name. That is enough." It hit me then. This was never just about wealth. It was about dignity, justice, and the truth finally standing taller than the lies. Moral lesson: greed and betrayal may shine for a season, but they rot from the inside. No matter how long it takes, truth has a way of finding the light. And when it does, it will strip away everything built on dishonor. Those who destroy others for gain must be ready to face the same destruction in return.